Hi, good afternoon everyone. This is Mohan. I take care of customer support and implementation at Kredily. In this webinar, we are going to learn how to use Kredily, how to process payroll, and how to generate payslips for your employees in just less than 15 minutes. If you have any questions on the process, I would request you to type in your questions in the chat section. If you have joined the webinar using your computer, you have the chat section towards the right. And if you have joined this webinar on your smartphones, the chat section is in the bottom. And before we start, I also request all of you to download Kredily's mobile application so that you can do the entire process that I'm going to demonstrate on your smartphone itself. So having said this, let's start the webinar and let's learn the features and functionalities of Kredily's payroll module. So as we are talking about payroll, I'm jumping into the payroll module from the dashboard itself. So the very first thing that you will be doing in payroll is to define your settings. Whatever your organization has been following as a system, following as the setting has to be defined in Kredily's account as well. Now when I say that, I mean you need to add your pay frequency, your pay cycle, your payout date, and your if you include weekly offs or not, if you include holidays or not, things like that, all basic settings. And then you will also define your PF and ESI settings in the system. And PF is a very robust system in Kredily. You can define PF as per your preference. The way you want it to be defined can be defined. Now you can say PF should be 12% of basic or 12% of the entire gross salary except HRA, or a fixed amount, or even a custom formula. And you can also enable the statutory minimum for PF deduction, and you can include or exclude the employer PF contribution in or from the CTC. And then individual override of PF is an option. You can also include the admin charges for PF in the CTC itself. And then you can also include or exclude your employer's ESI contribution in the CTC. You can also allow the individual override option, which means you will get an option to change ESI for a particular employee individually for whatever reasons. And in the overview tab of PF and ESI settings, you will get an option to individually make changes to your employees' profiles. For example, if I have to make some changes to Varun's profile, I'll go to edit. I'll put his PF number, UN number, and VPF number if there is any, and how much PF should be deducted for Varun, employee, employer, and ESI, is it turned on, turned off. You can make all the changes inside this settings. Or if you want to do this in bulk for all the employees, you can click on the import button and you can make changes in one shot to all of your employees. And basically this gives an option to download an Excel sheet, and you will add all the details in the Excel sheet and you will upload the Excel sheet back to the system. Then you have your PT settings. You will just have to turn on the PT option and define the work location for your employees so that system will calculate professional tax according to the location that's defined for your employees. And then you have your declaration settings. This is where you will get an option to turn on the window in which your employees are supposed to submit their tax declarations. In this case, I've mentioned it as 1st of April to 2nd of March 2022. And this can be assigned to the entire organization, or you can even assign it only to a selected employees. And then you will have an option to select or create components as per your preference. Now you can create any number of base components, recurring components, variable components, and ad hoc components. So base components are the components which you cannot get rid of. Basically every structure should have these components because these are the statutory components suggested by the law. Now you have your recurring components as well. These are the components, as the name suggests, will appear in every month's salary. These are defined by the company as per the policy, as per the company's standard policy. There is no restriction on this. So we have already created a few components which are mostly used by companies in India. If you want to create another component, you can always use the create component option. and create any number of components that's required. Now, if you want to change the existing component, the definition of the existing component, you can click on the component's name, and you can make all the necessary changes. For example, you can change the component type to reimbursement or contribution, or you can say that proof is required to get this component. Should this component be taxable or not? And should this be overridden or not? Should this be a loss of pay dependent component or not? Everything can be defined, and you can also say how much should be the value of this component. Is it going to be a flat value? Just put the value. You can also put a formula, like let's say 10% of CTC for that matter, or even 20% of CTC. So anything can be added, a flat value or a formulated value, or even you can create a slab and define the value. For example, if the CTC is between 0 to 3 lakhs, then you can say that the component should be 30,000 rupees per month. And if the CTC is between 3 lakhs to 5 lakhs, the components should be 40,000 per year. So you can define the slab as well. So in this case, I'm just going to keep it flat 12,000 rupees. And save this. So in the same way, this is already an assigned component, that's why I'm unable to change this. But in the same way, you will get an option to create components and make changes to the definition of it limitlessly. Same goes with your variable components as well. The only change in variable component is that you will select the pay frequency. Is it monthly, quarterly, half yearly, annually? And whether the tax should be deducted on the very same month or it should be distributed across the rest of the financial year is the option that you need to select. And you can also choose, if it is an annual component, for example, you can say which month should this component come on the salary structure. Or if it's half yearly, if you say that the component will start on January, so every 6 months this component will be appearing in the pay register. Excuse me, just give me a moment. I'm just going to close a few things. Sorry about that. So if you say that this component is a half-yearly component and you say that this starts from January, every 6 months from January this component will appear in the salary structure. Same goes with quarterly and monthly as well. And here as well you can create any number of components that's required and define as per your settings. And ad hoc components can also be created, and ad hoc components are the components which are not defined in your CTC. I would call them out of the box component, because this will never be mentioned in the CTC annexure or the breakup. But ad hoc components can come any time of the financial year and can appear in your salary structure. So you can create ad hoc earning components by just clicking on the create component button. Just type the name. Should this be taxable, not taxable? Should ESI be applicable for it or not? Just do everything and save it. We have already added a few components that are required by most companies and you can use them. Same goes with your ad hoc deduction component as well. You can create any number of ad hoc deduction components. Just give it a name and just select this remove from taxable income option depending on what sort of component you're creating. For example, if you're creating if you're deducting something from the income, that has to be considered for the taxing as well. For example, if you're deducting 50,000 from my salary per annum, that 50,000 should not be considered for the taxing. So make sure that you consciously turn on or turn off this option while creating the component. And the next option is your payout settings, and this is where you will add your bank details. Your employees' bank details can be added by just clicking on the edit button over here and just add all the basic bank details and save it. And if you want to do this in bulk, just click on the import button, download the Excel sheet, add all the details on the Excel sheet and upload the same, and the bank details will be updated in the system. And then we also have a few payslip formats. You can choose the one which suits the best for your organization. We have 8 of them, and the details that appears in payslip are slightly different, and the pattern and format are different in these payslips. So choose accordingly. I'm sorry, excuse me. And the next option is bank integration, and this is where you will get an option to integrate your bank with Kredily. And this is one of the coolest features, I would say, because Kredily gives an option to even do the payout to your employees directly from the system. Now you can avoid the jazz of sending the salary sheet to a bank and enter the OTP every time they transfer salary to your employees, and this is all going to take a lot of time, and that is what we are trying to avoid here. And in Credily, with just click of one button, you can release salary to all of your employees in one shot. And this is just a normal bank transfer, and this mostly happens within minutes, and a lot of time can be saved. If you have more questions on this, please do write your questions on the chat section. I'll be taking up all the questions towards the end of the webinar, and also I'll be sharing my contact details so that you can contact us if you have any questions on this. And then the next option is your setup payroll option, and this is where you will get an option to create your salary structure. So now to create your salary structure, you can just go to the create new structure option, and I'm really sorry. Just create new structure option and select the structure, regular structure or contract structure. I'm going to show you the regular structure now. So this is the regular structure salary structure that I've created. I'm going to name this as Feb 2022 structure. I will define my basic as 40% of the CTC and my HRA as 40% of basic. And PF and ESI is defined in the system already, so I don't have to worry about it. And special allowance is going to be the balancing amount always. And I'm going to add a couple of components. I'll add medical bonus, and I'll add phone reimbursement, and I will also add leave travel allowance. Okay, so this is my structure. I'm going to save it. The structure is created. And once the structure is created, you can go to Assign Structure tab, select your employees and assign the salary structure. Now you can either select just one employee or a few employees, or you can select all of them and assign salary structure for your entire organization if required. So in this case, let me just assign it to one employee. I'll assign it from the 1st of Feb 2022. Salary structure is assigned. So now I created structure, I defined all the components, PF, ESI, everything is defined, structure is defined. You can also add CTC by just clicking on the edit button. You can put your CTC, or even you can make changes to each of the components that's there in the salary structure. I've already given CTC as 8,55,000 to this employee. If you would like to make changes, you can do that. And you can add CTC in bulk by clicking on the import button. By downloading an Excel sheet, you can bulk upload CTC for all of your employees in the organization. And once that is done, you will get an option to run payroll for your organization. Now, before you run payroll, system would like to show us a few details that is important for you to know as an HR administrator, like how many days absent should you give to your employees, and how many employees have taken leaves in the month of Feb or in the month of Jan. So all of that details will be shown to you by the system, and please take a call according to what information is shown by the system. And if you want to make changes to it, you will get an option to make changes, because once the payroll is processed, the changes will not be happening. And then same with your leave as well. So system is showing that this employee is applied for a couple of leaves, and the first leave is already rejected, and the second one I want to reject it now, so I'm going to reject it. And then you also get an option where system will show if there is any salary change to any employee. So as we have added a new employee in the system and we have added a CTC, so there is a CTC change that has happened in the current month. So system is showing that there is this employee whose CTC has been changed or altered. Then system will also give an option where you can see all the variable components that are there for the current month, but unfortunately I don't have any variable components that's there for my employees in the current month, so system is not showing anything there. But in ad hoc, system will give me an option to add an ad hoc component to all of my employees by just clicking on the add employee button. Now you select your employee's name and select the component type, and let me give a added bonus to this employee Rahul of 2,500 rupees in the current month. Okay, I mean, you get the point. You can add any of your employee and you can just give a bonus there. And then if you want to hold your employee's salary for whatever reason, you can always add your employee to the hold list. Select the employee and make the status as on hold and save it. I don't want to do this because I want to pay salary to Rahul. But as you can see, I have held salary for Aruna already. And the last option is your tax override, and system will do the tax calculation precisely by itself. You don't really have to do any override, but if you want to override for whatever given reason, you can just click on the edit option here and you can make changes to the income tax that will be deducted for your employee. Okay, the same goes with your professional tax as well. For whatever reason, if you would like to edit professional tax for your employees, you can do that. And once that is done, you can go to Pay Register to see your entire salary sheet. So this is the salary sheet for my entire organization. You can export this if required, and then you can process payroll as well. So as you can see, I have already processed payroll for the first 2 employees. It says that the payroll is completed. And this blue logo, the icon indicates that the pay slips also have been generated for these employees. I processed payroll for these 2 employees like a couple of days back. As we support batch processing, I can choose for which employee I should process payroll, for which employee I should not process payroll. So now I'm processing payroll for Rahul, just 1 employee, and the rest I will process tomorrow. Payroll is processed for Rahul. Now I also want to generate payslip for Rahul, so I will select his record and click on generate payslip. I'm sorry, excuse me. Just bear with me for a moment. There's some connection issues, I guess. Yeah. Right. So now, as you can see, the payslip also has been generated for this employee. And at last, you can also do the payout from the system itself. Just select the employee, hit the payout button, and the salary will be dispersed within minutes in the system. And this is how simple it gets to do the entire setup and run payroll in Kredily. If you have any questions on the process, I request you to type in your questions and I'll be happy to answer. If you have any questions, you can type in your questions. There's a chat section, you can type in your questions, or I will be leaving my number and my email ID. You can contact me if in case you have any questions on the product. Looks like there are no questions, so thank you all so much for joining this session. Reach out to us if you have any concerns or if you need any assistance. We'll be more than happy to assist you. Thank you all so much for joining. Take care.